And USDOT, excuse me, points to two deadly crashes to show that truck drivers who don't understand English are actually highway hazards. And that is as you could see, a very horrific crash there. The U.S. Department of Transportation has followed up on action by the current administration to enforce English language proficiency, which in other words, ELP requirements for truck drivers by pointing to two high profile fatality crashes that officials say were caused by drivers who did not speak English. President Trump signed an executive order to rescind a 2016 policy that loosened enforcement on long-standing federal regulations that require commercial vehicle operators to be able to speak, read, and understand English succinctly, to read road signs and communicate with law enforcement and other members of the public, as I just explained. Following up on this, on behalf of the DOT, that directly pointed to a pair of high-profile commercial vehicle crashes as examples of the lack of this English proficiency and can harm safety on America's highways. They documented, FMCSA has documented where drivers' inability to read our signs and speak our language may have contributed to a series of fatal accidents. 2019, a semi-truck driver traveling down a crowded highway at almost 100 miles an hour blew past several warning signs that warned of steep grades and dangerous curves. The driver ultimately hit multiple vehicles in a fatal crash, killing 4 and injuring others. I reported on that story back in 2019. This gentleman was traveling across Interstate 70. He was just a local driver intrastate out of the state of Texas, never really been out of Texas, never ran the hills or anything, 27 years old, and killed 4 people because he lost his brakes coming down Vale. And well, actually it wasn't really Vale, but that real long steep grade coming into Denver on Interstate 70. So that's one of the cases, like I said, that I did report on. The driver ultimately hit multiple vehicles in that fatal crash, like I said. In January of 2025, a fatal collision in West Virginia, the second case, involved a driver fleeing another accident who required an interpreter for the post-crash investigation. So the first crash, like I said, this Menderos was initially issued a 110-year sentence after he was convicted on 27 charges, including the counts of vehicular homicide, in October of 2021. However, the sentence was reduced to just 10 years. So they knocked off a 100-year sentence off of him because the Hispanic community got in a hissy fit about a 110-year sentence. You had no disregard. And his excuse was he couldn't understand English, but killed 4 people. So, anyway, I'm not going to go on. I could go on and on about that, but I'm not going to. It would take up a lot more than an hour program.